it was organic, so it's meant. Welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Devine, Director of Student Media. I am the advisor to the Echo, the paper that most of you know here, the student paper on campus. If you're a student here at EMU and you're not writing for the Echo, we encourage you to come down and write for the Echo, and we'll give a big sales pitch at the end too. But it's my pleasure today to introduce Chris Azzopardi. It was great. I got some great stories, and it's very fun to have him back here on campus today. He's a lot of fun. He's got great stories to share with you. And what I wanted to say related to the Echo with Chris is because he started out a Canton guy from Canton all the way to Canton. So anyway, but he's gone from the Echo to Between the Lines to Calgary and beyond. So, and he's going to talk about where the beyond is, as you can see. But really, one of the things that we can check online and verify, or you can come to the Echo and see, people like Chris, what really makes him successful is that he started the Echo and he didn't write a couple columns. He wasn't the guy who said, oh, I'm going to be a journalist, and then didn't write for the paper. He's the guy who came around and did a lot of work. He became the thing he wanted to be by doing it. You know, he got out there and hustled up stories, chased things down, and he learned a lot along the way while he had the chance here at school. And then I remember one day you saying to me, this is a little anecdote, you might not remember, a saying. A saying.
It was so romantic.
And so one day, you had this, I don't know if it was a year end, we were kind of just talking about, what you were thinking beyond graduation. And Chris had this great line about, I said, well, where are you going to go? And he said, eventually, I want to be a reporter for Entertainment Weekly, is what you said. And I feel like, well, you already overshot that. So, I mean, it's sort of like you've gone, you've done, here's the guy who defined his goal. He came and he made it happen by working at the Echo and by chasing down and pursuing what he wanted. And doing that, I think that's really wonderful. And that's why we invited him here today to tell you how to do it, share those stories, and tell you how you can be this guy. Well, the jobs are, so you can be like this guy, and that's really rewarding for us. And Carol Schlag, heck, the other journalists and professors who are here, Christine, Jim, it's great. You would say this too, is to see someone who then says, I'm going to be the journalist, I'm going to do this thing, and then they go out and they become that, and they pursue what they train to do and what they're passionate about. And that's really what's exciting about having Chris here. Quick thank you too to Mary Larkin, LGBT Resource Center, so you get LGBT credit for being here. But Mary, thank you for being co-sponsor today of today's event, and also the journalism department. Thank you, journalism program in the English department. So if there are any English people here, thank you so much for being co-sponsors as well. How about big round of applause for those folks? Two quick items of business. One is, I hope this is your size, Chris, because I did get him a little prize. We'll give it to him right off the bat. On the t-shirt. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we're in good health and bad.
Probably.
And then when we're done, I'm going to hand these out on the side. Don't mind me, I'll be milling around a little bit. But the evaluations, and those who do want LBC credit, learning beyond the classroom credit, I do need your last name and your student ID number. But everyone, if you wouldn't mind, there's a little evaluation. There's 6 questions you can just answer, and you get to keep your free Echo pen after you fill out the evaluation. So if you would do that, that'd be great. And then you can either leave it on the table or hand it to me or something. I'll walk down at the end, or I'll be up by the snacks, and you can hand it to me at the end. If you didn't get any snacks, help yourself to those. So I'll pass these out, and please fill them out. But to get the LBC credit, I do need your last name and student ID number. And Chris, without further ado, your turn. Yes. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. Journalism students, alum professors, my cheerleading squad. Hey, Mom. I'm honored to be able to come back to my home turf. I was here for 6 years, so this is pretty neat. And so I want to thank you for having me, and thank you for making me feel old. People do this when you're like 40 or 50. But I'm here to give the journalism students a taste of what it's like to be a real-world journalist, and hopefully give you some inspiring advice. I never imagined that I would come back here and speak to all of you. And to start, I thought I would share some journalism, some inspiration that I got early in my career. These were like some encouraging touching from the hard letters that I received when I was a newcomer to the business. And the first was, the manner in which you criticize Diana Ross is bitchy and condescending, and if your sissified mannerisms of journalism are umbrage. You are one of a dime a dozen who call themselves reporters or worse, journalists, who qualify as nothing more than bitch queen. That was pretty cool. Chris Azzopardi, that is a review fail of yours. You are absolutely wrong in Mary J. Blige's album. People like you are probably caught up on the Gaga bandwagon. Everyone, don't listen to this stupid review. Chris Azzopardi, you suck. Your review sucks. Burn in hell. Yeah, that makes me feel good. But really, these are the letters that I still get hate mail, but they became the catalyst and the motivators for me to continue on.
Your column.
Oh, thank you. But those letters became the motivators for me to continue with my career and keep on writing and piss people off. You know, the part about being a journalist is that you want to be read, and I don't care if you have something negative to say or something positive to say as long as you're reading it. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do it here in Michigan, not have to move out of state, go to LA or New York, which is where I initially thought I would be at. So now here I am and giving you guys advice on something that I wasn't so sure of myself 6 years ago. And you know, it started 6 years ago, but I'll start with what's still fresh in my mind, which just happened a few months ago when I went to New York to interview Meryl Streep, and it was a week-long press engagement. I did Meryl Streep and Madonna, and at the end of the week I did Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the entire cast. And the Meryl Streep interview was Carol's favorite interview. She always talks about this on Facebook. But I was with mainstream press, and I remember being the only gay journalist, at least the only gay press journalist there representing gay press. And I announced myself as someone from gay press. And it got actually hilariously awkward when I said, I am from gay press and I have a gay question. And Meryl Streep looked at me and she goes, okay, let me get ready. All right, go. And it was very Meryl Streep of her. It was a priceless encounter. And 2 hours before that was when I went and I interviewed Madonna. It was all in one day. I was nervous as hell. And I was sweating up a storm. And I remember walking into the Waldorf Astoria, which is in New York City. I walked into this room. There's 6 other journalists because they let us all the gay journalists were relegated to one room per Madonna. She just, that was her manager's agreement with gay press, was that at least all the gay journalists had to be in one room. So we go into this room, and it was like, she comes in and it's like royalty, like Queen Elizabeth walks in, her publicist is like, everybody Madonna, like, you know, we didn't know. And I look at her and I'm like, God, that's seriously Madonna. And I about crap myself. And she sits down and she's very gracious. She shakes everyone's hand, and she's very kind until I ask my first question. I preface it by saying, you know, Madonna, you're the queen of reinvention. And she goes, please don't throw those tired old cliches at me. It was so awkward. I didn't know how, well, let me find that slide here. Yeah, there we go. This was the cover shot from Orlando publication that picks up my articles. But, so she goes, please don't throw those tired old cliches at me. And I didn't know what I would say after that. So I froze up. I was like, okay, get it together, Chris. And I continued on with my question. And it's so weird being at these roundtable interviews because there's like 6 or 7 journalists. Everyone is competing to ask the entertainer a question. And so right after that, I proceeded to ask another question. Or at least like, somebody else asked a question, and then I asked her, we were talking about her film, this was for her film W.E., and she goes to me when I said, it was, about the movie, at the end of the movie they do a dance sequence, so she's doing the twist the cast members are doing the twist. And when they do the twist, I said, Madonna, can you do the twist? And she goes, yeah, are you kidding me? And it was so weird. So, you know, other junkets that I've gone on, my first junket was in LA, and this was probably about 3 years ago, and it was for The Kids Are Alright. I interviewed Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo and Josh Hutcherson, who's in the new Hunger Games movie. And I remember calling my mom from it and saying, Mom, I'm at the movie theater, we're about to see the movie, and guess what, they have all-you-can-eat treats. It was, they seriously gave us a ticket for everything we wanted at the concession stand, because they just want you to write something good about the movies so you can get whatever you want. And it was a whole new world for me. I didn't know how to react. I ended up getting Sour Patch Kids and popcorn and a Diet Pepsi. And then other junkets that I've been on, I went to LA a couple more times. I interviewed Cher. That's the Cher cover in the middle there, and that was from San Francisco. And then I went to Napa Valley, which is one of the coolest junkets that I've ever been on. We went there for Julia Roberts. The junket was 3 days. I got to bring a guest with me, which was the first time that you were able to bring somebody else with you. And like I said, they treat you like royalty, so we got massages, we got to stay in this fancy inn suite. And the one on the right is Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis, and that was in Santa Monica. And I remember seeing Justin out by the pool like 2 hours before the interview, and they were both really cool, like very down to earth. But once again, same deal. People trying to compete to ask someone a question. It's very cutthroat. Some other memorable interviews that I've had. Stevie Nicks told me that she works out to her own music on the treadmill. Kathy Griffin, this was a good one. Kathy Griffin and me, I've spoken to her a couple of times, and she called me Paul at the end of the interview, and then she called me back to say, this was like 2 seconds later, my phone rings, and she goes, fuck, I'm sorry, I meant Chris, not Paul. When I was in LA for the last interviews with Cher and Christina Aguilera had this diva moment, and during the interview she barked at her publicist because she had the wrong suit. So to be in a room and like watch this happen, she's like sitting down, she has her dog, she has a blanket, and then her suit is not chicken noodle. And she tells her publicist in the middle of answering her question, this is not the right suit. Like totally not interested in being there. And like these are the things that I have to put up with. I'm not complaining. No, I'm not complaining at all. I love interviewing celebrities, but it's not always as glamorous as it seems. I've been able to see them as real people. I mean, that's probably not a real person moment. A normal person probably thinks it too. I also spoke with Angelina Jolie about doing drag for her Salt movie in DC. I was able to get a tour of the entire city and go to DC, and we got a tour of the Spy Museum, and then we were able to see the city. I'd never been there before, so that was pretty cool. Okay, 30 minutes or less. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this movie. This is an interesting story because when I was in New York City for this, when I was in New York City for 30 minutes or less, it wasn't a gay movie, and I knew it wasn't going to be, but I thought this was a cool opportunity to look at it differently. And this was a movie with Jesse Eisenberg and Aziz Ansari. And I thought to myself, well, how could I approach it from a different angle? So I thought, this was around the time that New York had just approved gay marriage. So I thought, well, I'll go there, and I'll riff on how progressive we become. A gay journalist at a very mainstream, very bro-like movie. Like, that doesn't happen very often. So I go, and the night before, I'm hanging out with so many people, and Jesse Eisenberg, who's from Social Network, I don't know if you guys know who that is, he rides up, he pulls his bike into the hotel, and I'm having dinner with the Sony people, and he just takes a seat, starts talking to us with his bike next to him. He lives in New York City, so it was such an interesting moment. And then the next morning I did the interviews, And I have this clip. I have this YouTube clip. Don't make fun of my mouth. Somebody took a YouTube video and put it up. Oh, but I'm not connected to that. Plug this in from that cable. Where's the tech guy?
Is there an Ethernet cable up there coming out of the little, I don't know, depression there? You know,
Oh, out of here?
yeah, you know, or it might be on the back of the Mac screen. You just pull it off there, and there you go.
Thanks. So this was at a press conference, and there's about 30 people in a press conference, so it's a little different. A little different standing in front of 30 people, talking, and just asking one. Oh, I think I need a pass.
Yeah, there's a lot of romance going on in this movie, and I'm wondering when a romance becomes full-on gay.
Can everyone stop saying romance? I'm with mindset. There's no reason about it.
I call it a double buddy comedy. That's how I like to describe this movie, as a double buddy comedy, because we're so used to buddy comedies, but it's really two pairs of friends, and to me the friendship never strays too gay. It's just a true affection and support and love for a friend, which I think Aziz's character represents by, you know, putting his life on the line to help his buddy. And then at the end, obviously Travis and Dwayne, they have a unique relationship, but I think Dwayne proves what a good friend he is when instead of chasing after the money and after the guys, he goes to help his friend who's on fire. So
There is an alternate ending shot where we all fuck each other. Watch that, like, this is perfect.
Yeah, that might be. What'd you say?
They didn't think I was Sophia.
No, right, exactly. Well, it was my kidding me. Sounds like gold. So aside from celebrity interviews, I also, this started about 2 years ago, I started doing tours, like city tours. They invited me out to Columbus. I know that sounds like so not glamorous, but Columbus is actually a really cool city. And they wanted me to come out there for 4 days to write about the city and my experiences there. It was a gay tour, so they took us to all the gay clubs and to all the restaurants, and we got to do a Segway tour. So it's all expense paid. Columbus pays for it, and I just got invited out to another one recently. I'm going out to Provincetown in June, where I've never been there, but I hear it's pretty gay. And I'm doing another media tour. So that's a pretty cool perk, because I always wanted to travel. well, you know, so I was a student here from 01 to 06, and I have fond memories of being in Goddard and pizza night and mold on the wall. but no, really, I mean, that was like, and like Kevin was saying, I always wanted to write for Entertainment Weekly, and I remember when, at the end of my last year in school, I thought, okay, well, I can go from the Echo to Entertainment Weekly, no problem. So I sent in my resume and my clips, I got it all together. I sent my resume and clips to a bunch of places, but I got turned down by Mr. Times, I got turned down by the Free Press, and I never heard from Entertainment Weekly. But then I put my application in at Between the Lines, the gay and lesbian paper here. We put out a paper every week, and they didn't have they didn't have room for another staff member, so they hired me as a freelancer. So freelancing was a great way to get my foot in the door. And about 2 months later, they said, hey, you know, we have an open position now, would you like to take it? Well, at the time, I was working at Metro Parent, which I had a hookup through Eastern, actually. Cheryl James, who was the magazine writing professor, had called me. She was in a bind. She had lost somebody, and she said, hey, I really need somebody to come in, and I need somebody to write featurettes and do calendar entries, and essentially some bitch work, but but like, you really have to start off that way. And if I didn't start off small, I wouldn't have been able to build onto that. So being at Metro Parent really helped me, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I was writing about diapers, and I was writing about fancy toilet seat covers and kids movies, which, you know, still not bad, but I still freelance for them. But being at the Echo, I was thinking about this the other day, and about one of my interviews there, when I interviewed Margaret Cho, and that was probably the first celebrity interview that I've ever had. And, are you guys remembering that? I was so nervous. I was so nervous that the editor at the time of the section, I said, hey, I can't do this by myself. I need you to do it with me. So Drew got on speakerphone with me, and we both interviewed Margaret Cho at the same time, tag teaming her back and forth. It was so awkward in retrospect. I can't believe that I did that. But I didn't feel like I had the confidence to do it on my own. And it's crazy to think that now I'm having one-on-one interviews with Lady Gaga and Beyonce, and doing round tables with Meryl Streep and Cher and Christina Aguilera, but we have to start somewhere. So Metro Parent, and then Between the Lines. So about 3 years ago, we bought Q Syndicate, which is the National Gay and Lesbian Wire Service. It's an international wire service. It serves 30 outlets in the U.S., Canada, and then one in the U.K. And this was out of almost pure luck. It just fell in my lap. It was kind of just handed to me because I was already the entertainment editor at Between the Lines. I moved up progressively. I started off as a staff writer, and then I wrote more entertainment pieces and became entertainment editor. But then when we took over the Syndicate, my bosses were like, well, you're already here. We'd like you to be the editor of it. So I thought it was a huge opportunity. And then I was able to hit a lot of markets. My stuff was published in Dallas, Calgary. It was being published in the UK, Orlando, San Francisco. And my first breakout story was this story, actually, Martina McBride. I don't know if there's any country fans out there, but yeah. This was a huge story for me. And I did this story for Out.com. I was freelancing for Out. And they actually pitched a story to me for people. And I thought, well, how can I get the most coverage out of it? So I pitched it to Out, and I ended up doing it for their website. And as soon as it hit, it was her first interview with gay press. And whenever a country star does anything that is, you know, gay, it gets major press. It was like her Dixie Chicks moment. So I was getting picked up across across the board on blogs and in major news sites, and people were talking about the radio. My friends would come back to me and say, hey, I heard about that Marcy McBride interview that you did, and I was like, oh, really, where was that? And it was pretty nuts. I remember there being a big issue about it too, because her publicist at the time wasn't very happy that I was publicizing it so much. They didn't want all the press because they were afraid that she was going to alienate her conservative mandate. So that was one of my more controversial stories. Just another one. I know that's like a weird picture of Scott Thompson in the hall, but so Leanne Rimes, I did an interview with Leanne Rimes, and she was married for a few years, and I brought up a question at the end about her husband, her ex-husband, who had been rumored to be gay, and her PR people called me after the interview and said, hey, you know, that interview went really well, except that last question. We're not so sure about that question, the one about the gay hub. And they were like, yeah, well, they're like, would you mind taking it out? And I thought to myself, well, let me get back to him. Because it was such good fodder, like, I knew that it would get picked up. And I didn't want to let go of it. So I thought about it before giving them a definite answer. And then I contacted them, and I thought about it some, and I thought, how can I handle this without having to get out of my story? And I put a positive spin on it, and I told them, hey, you know, I think what she said puts her in a very positive light. I think she had very nice comments to say about him, and I don't really see anything wrong with it. And once I put that spin on it and told them that it made the client look good, they said, okay, we're fine. So that was one of the stories that I had. Scott Thompson, oh my God. This was probably my biggest story, ironically, of all the stories that I've done, Gaga, Beyonce, although that was a big one. Scott Thompson's from Kids in the Hall, and not many people probably know about him anymore, unless you grew up in the 80s. But he made a remark about a hot topic as of late, bullying, and I asked him, we got into a conversation about bullying, and I asked him how he thought we could solve this issue and what he suggested for kids and their parents, and he said, grow hair. Flat out just said, kids should grow hair. and I was surprised he said that, but as soon as I put it out there, and that was my headline, by the way, Scott Thompson helps kids grow hair. Because I knew, I was playing the media, I knew what they looked for. So it got picked up by the Onion's AD Club and the Huffington Post. This is actually from the Huffington Post. Hundreds of times, even thousands sometimes. I looked through them, from all angles. So that was really interesting. And then Jenny McCarthy. This was definitely an interview gone wrong. I was supposed to publicize an event that she was doing. She was coming here for an autism workshop, and if you're familiar with Jenny McCarthy, she went from Playboy to autism. And so I'm not very good. She calls me, and we start talking about the workshop and about autism. And of course, I have to always look for an angle. I have to look for a gay angle in almost every story that I do, just like that 30 minutes of that story. So I proceed to probably have one of the worst segues I've ever had. But I go from autism to, so I just heard rumors about you and Jenna Jameson and a history that you've had on Howard Stern. And she goes to me, I'm here to talk about autism, and you want to talk about licking pussy. Well, I was almost dying. I was like, how do I recover from that? And I go, well, I don't want specifics. And I work for a gay magazine, and then I didn't even get very far, and she hung up on me. And I bawled, I cried. I was so upset, I went to my coworker's office. Like, Jenny McCarthy just hung up on me. And I was devastated, and now I look back at it, it's just a a lesson learned. I only had, a lot of times you only get a limited amount of time with a celebrity, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, and it's really hard to move swiftly and appropriately from one topic to the next without making it awkward or uncomfortable, or in this case, being hung up on. Alright, here's Beyonce. Alright, this was definitely one of my biggest articles too. And the Beyonce interview was 10 minutes long. That's all I got, and they were very strict about the 10 minutes. But I remember having to submit my questions beforehand. Her PR people asked me for all my questions, and I said I don't write questions. Even though I do write questions. I sent them talking points instead, and I said, I just make it conversational. I don't like to have a script. I just like to go in and see what comes out. And so I gave them 6 or 7 talking points, and they sent me back this letter about one of the talking points, which was, how would you and Jay-Z react if you had a gay baby? And this, by the way, was before July 8th. I didn't know she was pregnant. So this was like 3 months before I knew she was even trying to have a baby. So her publicist writes back, we're good with the talking points that you submitted except for the gay child question. Management would like that question removed from your question, since Beyonce is very open and would love her child no matter what sexual orientation. Other than that, you're cool. So that interview was Beyonce's first gay interview in 6 years. She did an interview with Instinct Gay Magazine previously, and it was pretty cool to get her first gay exclusive in 6 years, even though I can ask that question. But my thought was that she was probably pregnant, and they didn't want me to reveal that if she answered the question, she might let on that she has a baby. So. Alright, well, this is my website, but gosh, in 6 years, there's so much that I've learned. But one of the biggest ones is that not only is having your degree important, because that gave me the resources and the skills, that gave me the skill set for what I'm doing now, but who you know is more important than I could have ever realized. Going out of school and into my first job, I didn't realize that networking and getting to know other journalists, getting to know people at conferences was so important, because that's how I got the Out interview with Martina McBride. I met the editor out at a conference probably 4 years ago. It was the NLGJA conference, the National Gay and Lesbian Journalism Association conference. I met her, and I ended up emailing her afterwards, and we spoke for a bit, and she said, get in touch with me if you ever want to write a story. And so that Martina McBride story fell on my lap, and I said, hey, do you want this story? And if I didn't have that connection, if I didn't know who to contact, I wouldn't have done probably anything with it. So you should try to connect with as many people as you can. Are you familiar with LinkedIn? Everybody familiar with LinkedIn? Okay. That is a great professional networking tool. I just recently, even though nothing panned out from this, but 2 weeks ago I got a message on there from Us Weekly asking me to cover a film that's going to be filmed in Detroit soon. She hasn't called me back, so I don't know. But either way, she found me on there. So people are looking through there, trolling through there, looking for journalists wherever they might need them. So you should definitely consider signing up for LinkedIn, or and there's no excuse not to be on Twitter or Facebook or any of these social networking sites. I use them for work all the time. That's part of my job. I have to promote my work on all of them. So being self-sufficient, my job was created by me in a way, because I had the platform, I had the foundation, which was Between the Lines, but once we got the syndicate, there was no celebrity department, there were no celebrity features. The syndicate was purely comics, puzzles, columns, and I had been doing celebrity interviews, with more minor celebrities, and I thought, well, this is a great opportunity not only for me to build my career, but also help the business. So I thought, well, I'll do celebrity interviews, I'll post them on the syndicate, they'll get more press, and then maybe eventually I'll be able to get bigger stars. And that's what gradually happened, is that as people were catching on to the fact that I had big, high-profile names, and I had this syndicate where I was, essentially getting press. We have a circulation of about 500,000, so it's more than like an average daily. We were giving all this press to people. They thought, okay, well, this is a great opportunity for our clients. And then I got, probably 2 years ago, I was getting called out to movie junkets. So being self-sufficient, like Kevin was saying, as soon as I graduated from here, I knew that I wanted to make something of myself, and I knew I had this big goal of entertaining legally, and I still have it. But if you set those up for yourself, you'll find the resources and hopefully reach that. Being strategic, go the extra mile, freelance all that you can. Freelancing is a great way to get your foot in the door. Like I said, that's how I got my first job, or teachers, like, suck up to your teacher. If I didn't have a good relationship with Cheryl, she probably wouldn't have asked me to come on board at Metro Print.
She loves your writing. I remember her writing about you. She just loved it.
She's so sweet. Also, another part of being strategic is when I went out to New York for all those interviews, when I did Meryl Streep, and when I did Madonna and the cast of the girl with the dragon tattoo, that was for 5 days. And I was originally only supposed to be out in New York for the girl with the dragon tattoo. Sony was paying me to come out there for 1 night. And they flew me out there, and they put me in a hotel room. But that was just for 1 night. I had, when I learned that I could interview Madonna and Meryl Streep 3 days beforehand, I had to figure out a way to make that happen. I mean, I'm like, there's no way that I can pass up that opportunity. So I put on Facebook, does anybody live in New York and can they take me in for 3 nights during the week? So, I mean, it might sound glamorous, but I got 1 night paid, and then the rest of it I was trying to figure out where I was going to stay. I mean, I would have pitched a tent if I meant interviewing Madonna, as long as it could be part of my resume and part of my portfolio. And, the biggest that I've learned, gosh, because I've done so many of these, but how to interview, that interviewing is an art form. And that's not something that you can teach. That's just experience, doing like hundreds, probably even close to 1,000 interviews over the last, 7-8 years, if you take into account my echo work. That's been a big part of me. Look at where I started. I was doing an interview with my editor, talking to Margaret Cho, tag teaming, and then doing interviews by myself with Beyonce. And that's only because I've done so many of them. It just makes it so much easier. Interviewing tips. I will give you some tips. Like I said, it's hard to teach how to interview because I think everyone develops their own technique as they do them. But going off script, this is something that when I started at first, I would write all the questions out. I would even write like an introduction and like what I wanted to say to whomever, as soon as I got on the phone with them because I was so nervous. And now I've learned that I'll still write my questions out, and I will still, I'll do all my research, and then I'll still come up with sort of a script. But that's just part of allowing it to resonate with myself, so that when I get on the phone, it all feels natural. It just comes to me, like, in the middle of a conversation, I will remember a question that I wrote down. And if it flows better, it makes it much easier for not only you, but the person that you're interviewing. It just feels more natural, and you'll get more authentic responses from them. Balancing your questions. I always think, all right, serious and silly. When I'm interviewing a celebrity, obviously I don't have to ask about serious questions. People want to know the stupidest things about celebrities. I asked one of the questions I asked Jennifer Nettles of Sugarland. She's like a huge mega country star, and she was going through some legal battles with an ex-member, Kristen Hall, and I said, let's talk about the legal battle that you had with ex-member Kristen Hall, who sued you last year for profits she said she was owed. Did it leave a bad taste in your mouth for lesbians? So like, so instead of asking about the legal battle, because I knew she couldn't talk about that, I knew she'd say I can't talk about it. I said, well, how can I twist this question and get like a good response? And her response was simply, well, obviously I'm not allowed to speak about the legal battles, but I love lesbians. And then like that became a viral quote. People were like, Jennifer Nettles loves lesbians. So I admit I try to bait a lot of these celebrities out there. But time management is a huge deal, especially if you have limited amount of time. This will happen if you're doing celebrity interviews. Like, oh my God, 10 minutes with Beyonce. It's really tough to get everything in, especially if she's rambling on and you're like, oh God, I got 2 more questions for you. I need to move on from this, Beyonce. And I actually did that with Gaga. The second time I interviewed Gaga, we were about 13 minutes into the interview. The publicist gets on the line because they're tapped into, they're listening to the entire conversation, which, by the way, took me forever to get over. It's really awkward knowing there's a third party listening to you, and then chiming in at the 2-minute point and saying, okay, Chris, you have 1 question left, or you have 2 minutes left. So I asked her, or I told her in the middle of her rattling on about her fans overseas, which wasn't really pertinent to the conversation anyways. I said, Gaga, I'm so sorry, I have to cut you off because I only have 2 minutes left with you. And she was funny. She goes, oh, that's okay. I can talk forever with you. You're so cute. So that's pretty cool. I kept telling all my friends. Some difficult interviews that I've had. You know, it's difficult if they're talking too much or if they're talking too little. And third time actually that I interviewed Margaret Cho, which, by the way, I did by myself. The third time that I interviewed Margaret Cho, she was so difficult to talk to, and I don't know if maybe I irritated her because I gave her TV show for review. I often wonder if they read that. But her responses were short, like 2, 3-word answers, and I didn't really know what to do, and so I kept trying to push her into answering questions, into elaborating, and it just wasn't happening. The interview ended up being 7 minutes, and like, you can't do anything about it. I interviewed a porn star once, and it was the same deal, and I mean, I should have expected that from a porn star, but it was like pulling teeth, and I admit that this lead that I wrote was probably really catty, but it was very appropriate. And I wrote, good thing a picture is worth 1,000 words. I barely got that many out of front effort during a recent chat with him. It was so appropriate. If I'm running out of time and the publicist chimes in and tells me I've only got 2 minutes left, I'll generally have like the meatiest questions in the middle, so I know to like automatically go there and ask whatever is right in the middle of the questions that I've written out, so that I don't miss anything important. But there are a lot of ways to note to yourself, well, this is important, don't miss this. You know, you can bold it, you can number them, and I used to do that, but when I started making my interviews feel more natural, I decided that I just wanted the questions all written out sort of in order from beginning to end, and that my most important questions would always be in the middle. Think outside the box. I always look up a lot of interviews with stars before I interview them because I want to know what other people have asked, because I don't want to ask the same thing. A lot of people read the same interviews with people, and a lot of these stars get the same questions, and I don't want to do that next time. So, I try not to ask a lot of questions that have already been asked, and if they've already been asked it, I might have them elaborate on statements that they made, or something that they're brought up elsewhere. So you should consider that, and you draft your questions a few times. Like, actually, when I'm writing my questions out, I think of it as the article. Like, it's the foundation, it's the base for my article. Because really, what those questions are, those are like the nuts and bolts, those are the macaroni. You know what I mean? Like, the questions are my article in essence. So if I don't have good material to work from, then it's not going to be that great of an article, regardless of how well I write it. When I interviewed Macy Gray for her last album, she had a track on there with Bobby Brown. And I was like, God, this is interesting. Macy Gray and Bobby Brown together in the studio. And I was like, what can I ask? So I go, Macy, does Bobby Brown share his marijuana supply? And it was hilarious. That whole interview was hilarious, by the way. But she goes, oh, well, he doesn't have to. There's plenty of marijuana for everybody to get them for themselves. Like, I knew that if I could make Macy Gray sound crazy, then it would be success. I asked Gaga if you could be reincarnated as a living monster, who would you come back as, or what would you come back as? And she said, myself, but I would have all my protrusions be real, and I would be a real fairy monster. She would be mean and fierce too, and have a fake mole. I mean, it's so ridiculous, but people love reading that stuff. By the way, this was my second interview with Gaga. This clip you see here is from Florida. And the first time I interviewed Gaga, I did almost blow her off, because this was before she became Gaga. This was when her first single came out, and she wasn't like a big mega star. She wasn't like the next Madonna. And they asked me if I wanted to interview this Lady Gaga, and I was like, who is she? No, right? Why would I want to interview her? I just seriously thought she was just like an up-and-comer, and in essence she was, but she up and came really fast. And so the publicist that arranged that always teases me, because she actually knew that I wasn't that interested in that first interview with her. So don't pass up opportunities. Take whatever you can. I've learned that, and now, like, if they offer me an interview with a new artist, I usually don't hesitate. I'll usually take them up on it, just because you never know when someone's going to be the next Gaga. The biggest point I want to make too about doing interviews is relaxing. That obviously was an issue for me for a long time, and once I started to relax when I was talking to somebody, the conversation would just flow better. I was able not to look at my questions anymore. I became more confident, and that was a big part of it too. I wasn't so confident when I was still at the Echo, but over time you build that confidence, and you're able to relax when you're doing an interview. And if you're more comfortable with them, they're generally more comfortable with you, and you still open up to you a little bit more. And that happens a lot with my interviews with Gaga, happened with Beyonce, Macy Gray. Oh yeah, this is all that I've written about. Diapers, drag queens, porn stars, strippers, EMU alone, tailgating, the Muppets, Eminem's mom. I interviewed her. Bullying, sex after kids, celebrities, decorative twists, etc. I don't say no to anything, really. I'll pick on any story. Because the most important thing to me, and it still is important to me, is building a portfolio. And I did that in college. I remember photocopying my clips when I see the Echo come out, take it to the photocopier, and I make a copy, and then I put it in a folder, and I keep them all. And then I knew, like, you know, when I applied to my first job, I took all those clips and I sent them in with my resume, and I had all of it there, so I didn't need to scour, didn't need to really look for any of it. So I still keep that up to date, like when I'm going through my, right now actually I keep it on a website. You know, technology comes so far, I don't need to photocopy anymore. But building a portfolio and the experience that you have is so important. Like I said, the skill set is important, but I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all the experience that I had at the beginning of my career. If I didn't start at Metro Parent and write about toilet seats, if I didn't go to between the lines, and then that syndicate fell in my lap. Being multifaceted, this is so important now because journalism is changing so much, and it's going to continue to change. And if you can only write, it's going to be hard to be a successful journalist because they're looking for people who can not only write, but who can design, who can edit, who can social network, who can do tedious work like calendar entries. I do all of that all the time. I don't just write, I don't just edit, I don't just go and interview celebrities. So that is imperative. Being self-motivated, people who take the initiative to find their own path, people, this is one field where you want to be noticed, and so you want to promote yourself. You need to take that initiative. If you don't take that initiative, no one else is going to do it for you. No one else did it for me. I said to myself, like Kevin said, I want to work at Entertainment Weekly, and so I needed to find the right ways to make that happen. Being able to write great copy quickly. I know this seems obvious, but it's true. And a lot of people that we've worked with at both Between the Lines and Q Syndicate can either write really fast, and they write really fast and it's poor copy, or they don't write fast enough, and it's great copy. So you need to find like that happy medium, and again, that will just come with experience. I mean, I was in no way polished when I left the Echo. Writing for 6 years, I've been able to become much more efficient in writing. I probably put out 4 articles a week now, in addition to editing and doing some design work, promoting our work online. But seriously, that experience in the portfolio, I cannot say that enough, how important it is to build a portfolio for yourself that you can show future employers. And this business is all about who you know and what you know and where you go. And who knows? I mean, you can be standing up here in 6 years, giving a speech to all of you. So I have some photos too.